Society, the 1989 paranoid goop fest about a teenager who discovers the cult ritual secrets of his socially elite family, is heralded as one of the late 80s most memorable entries. Unlike recent documentaries we've seen that fondly remember a host of 80s films, The Dark Side of Society takes a sharp left turn from discussing basic, behind the scenes nostalgia and dives into the unbelievable story of the film's head writer, then Woody Keith, now Zeph E. Zeph, who grew up similarly to the main character of Society, portrayed by Billy Warlock in the film, experienced a recall of sorts while working on the film, discovering deeply repressed trauma in what he had written.
Society is being done. It's being cast. It's in pre-production. I'm working on it. Brian liked to say I had nothing to do with it half the time. I don't know why that is. I guess he's frightened, but he like But I'm working on. Rick is actually in the hospital. He's got stomach issues. Brian and I are working at my house, and we're in the little writing room I had there. The wife had left, so I kind of had the place. It was for sale, and we were working there. The phone rings. I pick it up, and it's hey, this is, and I work there, and she said, she goes, Woody, it's all true, like that. So here I got to go back and face Brian, and I'm freaked out, man. I'm just like, it's like it's like when Mickey Rourke looked in the mirror and he knew he killed all those people in Angel Heart. It's that moment of recognition, like, oh my God, it is real. I used the script as a way of testing to see if it was real. You see, I didn't want it to be. And then I told Brian about it. He said, I don't want to see you flip out. I'll pull it right now. I'll pull the production right now. And I said, no, 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 no. And I,
The Dark Side of Society allows Zeph to freely discuss his journey through hell, and the result is a documentary that will ardently divide audiences. The original interview was conducted with Zeph E. and Larry Wade Carrell both contributing, but for technical and legal reasons, most of the interview was deemed unsuitable for air. I want to thank Zeph E. for his time and his candidness, but even more, allow any viewers to get a sense for Zeph.
believe what you will. I don't expect, you see what you think. Maybe you have a parallel in your life.
Gotta save some for the movie, man. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, I know I'm going back over it, but
All right. So, now one of the bigger questions that I wanted to ask about Dark Side of Society is this is very different. I guess I'm gonna sort of go off a little bit on what we did before here. Um,
Sure.
you've worked with Zeph in the last couple of films. What was it about his story that made you decide that this was a good time to tell it?
Initially, I probably wasn't even on board to tell it. It's we did Girl Next together, and then we formed Crazed House, and we just kept working together. But uh, naturally, I was really excited when I got to work with him because it's Society, Brighter Reanimator, and all that, and of course, I asked him about it. Then when he started telling me his story, is kind of like jaw dropping. At first I was like, it was a lot to take in. And it was actually our producer Loris who came up with the concept. He's like, "Hey, we should just do a documentary about that." I said, "Oh, okay." And then they're like, "Oh, we should direct this." Like, "Oh no." But I thought about it, and then what's kind of weird is it's probably, and I feel like this probably is the same for the audience, is when I first got into it, I thought, okay, cool, we'll do a behind the scenes of Society and how we got the script and all that. And the more we got into it, the more with Zeph's story and stuff, you just kind of had, as a filmmaker, had to follow that narrative, and it does tell the story of how we got the script for Society, but it really goes into just Zeph's, uh, telling his truth, his story of his, surviving his abuse.
There are parts of this story that are very strange, let's say. Zeph's background puts him in sort of a weird place. He says that he's been in institutions, and
he says that he's come out of those institutions. Now he seems like he's doing great, which is fantastic. But what about this story is like, I guess, do you think that your audience is going to connect with this story based on the sort of stuff that Zeph has gone through and where Zeph has been?
Well, I mean, one thing I will say, like about Zeph, because I've heard this story more than you can imagine, and it's never changed. It's never been wishy-washy. It's always been the same every time he tells it. So, um, what I think the audience is going to get out of it, well, I mean, my hope is at the end of it that the audience will take something from Zeph's story and realize, he overcame all that abuse and, was able to turn it into positive things. And, I had one reviewer that really made me feel good. She said she found it heartbreaking, horrible, and inspirational.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
um, Now you guys got that Quantum Devil. I see the poster in the background
Oh,
there.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
coming up. What is what's Larry's writing style like now at post society, I suppose.
Oh, well, I mean, well, Zeph's writing style, is that what you meant to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
Yeah.
Zeph
Yeah. Zeph.
isn't Zeph writing that with you? Or
Oh yeah, no, he did. I mean, we do everything together, but I was just trying to understand the question because I did most of the writing on Quantum Devil, and he came and did a pass, and we always just kind of go back and forth on things like that. But in regards to Zeph writing, I think his pencil is sharper than ever, and some of that dialogue that just cuts, like all the way back to Society. When he wrote Girl Next, and I was reading the first draft before we started working together. The character Heinrich had some just great dialogue, and I always remember I was just pissed. I was like, I wish I was a good enough actor to play this role, but I knew better. But Stephen Johnston, who actually was involved in the Quantum Devil way before it was a Quantum Devil. Quantum Devil was adapted from a script he had written um, back then. But Stephen Johnston got a copy of Girl Next, and he read it, and his first words were, "I could definitely tell the Writers Society wrote this script," and even like every time Zeph writes stuff, and he's been writing, we just we're about to go into pre-production on Never Ever After, and then we've got the Dragon Island coming up, and his pen is really sharp, man. The dialogue's really good. You can definitely tell, and I think that's one of the things we cover in the documentary that I was trying to explain is that because of who Zeph is and because of his past and his upbringing and his disdain for the rich, it gives him this unique voice and it comes out in everything he writes. I mean, I read, I can spot it, instantly.
what is it about um well, let's put it this way. A Hollywood style, right? A lot of Zeph's story, a lot of Darkside of Society takes place in sort of underground Hollywood. Have you ever encountered anything like that with weird, uh, you know, Hollywood cabals or anything going on there?
Well, whenever I first started working with Zeph, I'm a dude from Alvin, Texas, from a small town, and I didn't grow up, but Zeph grew up out there. I mean, he grew up, his family lived in Beverly Hills. His grandpa was one of the guys that helped, get the street signs up in the neighborhood. And he's told me stories. He's told me stories from his childhood of being kicked out of Jack Palance. He went to spend the night with his buddy, was Jack Palance's kid, and they were playing the drums late in the night. Jack Palance kicks the door open, accosts Zeph for playing the drums and sends him home. I mean, that's just, can you imagine? That's just it's just such a weird thing. But he grew up out there, and that's why he has that he just really hates it. He really hates the high society.
But you've never encountered anything high society wise that maybe
Well,
even just in filmmaking.
no, when I started doing the research for this film to do it, I started uncovering all kinds of things. And there's so many stories out there. And it really, if you just start researching this child actors, things they've been saying for years that, a lot of it got covered up for a long time, but you'll find a lot of similar stories just like Zeph. I mean, Paris Hilton recently came forward, and I think she had a documentary, and um, it's so there's definitely a lot of weird shit that's went on out there. One thing I will say that because it's a difficult thing is that we worked really hard, did a lot of research, and it was really hard to make this documentary. And we went back and forth, just getting it to where we had a story that we felt like we wanted to put out into the world. But then we had to get it past the lawyers. So there was this whole process that, like, once the movie was done, it took like almost a year of going back and forth and say, hey, no, you can't say that about this person. You got to cut this. You got to do this. There's some edits in the movie that were sins to me as a filmmaker but there just was no other choice. You had to take out what they said you had to take out. So I know that some of the reviews have come off and say, well, you sold this side of the story, and this side of the story was not represented. And it's not that. I was told not to even talk about what we took out.
Yeah, it's kind of
So,
difficult.
yeah. So if there's a watchable movie there, I'm proud of it. I wish we could have put out what we had intended to put out, but I mean that's just the way that things are. I mean, nobody wants to be sued over anything and stuff. But the one thing I'm really happy about is that this has really kind of been like a healing kind of thing. Like, even since I first met Zeph and over the last years that we went through this, he's been forced to kind of deal with things that he used to kind of just, we're always just kind of there, and he never unpacked them and resolved them. And there's been a lot of things he's resolved through this journey, and he's doing really well now. I mean, he's doing really good. His health's returning. He's lost a lot of weight since we did the documentary. Like, now I'm the fat guy, the two of us. So he's doing well. I'm glad.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
For Zeph, that you said that this has been very healing. What is his demeanor now? Is he a little more easier going, or is he like, does that still rile him up? Does stuff like this still rile him up?
Oh, he gets riled up a lot. I mean, just by listening to the news, he can go off into rage. But one of the things I'll tell you about Zeph that's a bit has always made him endearing to me, at least, is even when in the documentary, you'll notice he's telling you these horrible things, and he'll stop and he'll just laugh because I don't think he knows what else to do with it. It's like, oh my God, we're talking about some of the worst things you can imagine, and he just, he's just very resilient. I mean, I can't imagine, being in and out of institutions and have your own parents do these things to you, and um, it was hard for me to grasp and understand that story. So I can imagine how it is for an audience. I mean, I did the best I could with it, and I wish that we could have left like everything in. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is. And, no filmmaker can ever go around to every audience before the screening and say, well, hey, I made a really good movie, but I had these lawyers and this screwed up. And then on this day, this was messed up. And, but enjoy.
Yeah.
This has to stand on its own. It has to stand on its own. So I think it's going to divide people, obviously. And I think some people will like it. Some people will hate it, but that's just like any of my movies, as long as they're being moved, I think I won.
That's yeah. It's a good way to put it. We've really hit everything that I've got written down. So
no, it's cool. It's weird. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you here and tell you a little bit about the behind the scenes. I mean, it was a really hard thing. My dad used to have this little thing he passed on to me about not pooping where you eat.
yeah.
And I thought at first, this is like, if it is a good thing to make this movie, I don't know that I should be the one to do it. But then I genuinely care about Zeph, and I love him, and he's like family now. And I'm I'm proud of what we did, and I'm proud that it's making him feel better. And already we've had some people just even off the one screening come, write me, and like the one person told me it was heartbreaking. They also found it inspirational, and they felt moved to come forward and tell their story. It's a lot. The abuse victims out there that's a lot.
That's awesome, man. That's the kind of stuff that you want to hear.
Yeah, that made the whole anything that was negative worth it. Even the lawyer process. Yeah.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much, Larry, for doing this. Thank you for meeting with me this morning. Sorry for all my technical troubles too.
No, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to?
Well, I
Yeah.
mean,
Is
I
there?
guess I definitely should say that anybody listening or watching or however this ends up, that on October the 10th in the United States and Canada, you can get the Quantum Devil finally, #2 behind Girl Next out of our Quantum Quartet. I encourage people to check it out. It's going to be a fun thing for Halloween. So that's coming out through Redbox Media and 1091 Pictures. Redbox Entertainment. And then be on the lookout for Never Ever After, which we are in pre-production right now. And then we're going right after that into Dragon Islanders. There's 4 movies that of our fictional works that we've been working on the last couple of years, and we're real excited for people to see those.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll be looking forward to them too. So
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Don't get too hot.
Society really, I guess, embodies that basic paranoid archetype. The notion that the whole world, the conventional civilization, society is lying to us.
It is a microscope put onto an elite upper class.
A lot of today's horror filmmakers like Gary Aster and Jordan Peele, you could just feel that they must have been watching this film on late night TV when they were growing up.
The upper class, hey, you're a different species from us.
Basic concept of this whole movie is the paranoia.
The rich are truly different.
I wrote the screenplay and didn't know what I wrote. In case you don't know this is real, it's real. It happened.
When Woody Keith wrote the script for Society, he thought he was writing a piece of fiction. It turns out Woody was exorcising demons.
This is an autobiography.
You subconsciously or unsubconsciously wrote Society, not realizing that it was things that happened
Literally.
to you.
Journey back through the rich history of California, and you will find Keith there.
He wanted to please his parents. He wanted everything to be fine. You know, he loved them. It's supposed to be a loving family, and yet some really unloving things happened.
Well, what I saw when I was a child was, there was satanic ritual abuse involving children and adults being groomed for sex. Thought I was going to die.
We're essentially being set up for sacrifice or use as fuel or breeding stock by a privileged, inhuman elite.
Well, in the words of some of these people, like in the words of my own mother, it was like, well, that happens to everybody.
If you've got so much money, so much time to waste, what are you going to do? You're going to sort of like exercise probably the worst tastes and the worst sort of extremes that you're ever going to go through.
These people are everywhere. Everyone knows that story is real.